Easy E, how are we?
Seán E, we're back. And I'm back. I was about to say a bad word there. I have to rein it in. I'm wrecked.
You're wrecked. You're wrecked. I think people understand what kind of wrecked you were. What you're going with that one now? Why? How? Like I know why you're wrecked. For those that follow you on Strava, know why you're wrecked. You're doing 45k a day on the ski slopes, absolutely insane. But now that you're back from skiing, like not to put you in the spot, but last one the podcast, you went, you got a lot more on your mind, I suppose, for lack of a term, right now. And then you kind of took the 4-week break and take the 4-week break, and then you went skiing at the end of that 4-week break. So when you come back, it's all systems go then. So we kind of touched the skiing and how intense it was last week. Did you feel like you're good to go now, or do you I need a week break after a holiday like that?
I'm gonna be on it. Like from going from 30 days to okay, I suppose we'll touch on people are like, oh, it's 42k, but the mountain is doing most of the work. Yes, you are correct. You're covering a lot of ground a hell of a lot quicker. Like coming down some slopes at 50-60 kilometers an hour, like it's terrifying when you haven't got control, because that's what I hadn't got. And but from day one, so obviously I sat in my bum for 30 days because of the transplant, and it was freedom time, so we were going skiing. But the first day, like, I actually had to pull Katie aside. I was like, Katie, I don't think you understand. I am goosed. I was like, I cannot do another hill. I was like, I'll actually just throw myself down it. It was that, like,
jeez,
that level of tiredness, and it was not good. And then I was like, why was I feeling like that? And as I stopped talking to her, I looked at my watch just to see what time it was. And it was set to show me like current heart rate, current speed, all that. 184, standing on the side of a hill. And it was 3:00 and I'd already burned 5,000 calories. And I know we touched on it a little bit, but just in the hindsight of how the week went, it was just like, oh my God, I am in a bad, bad way. So like, although people ski down the hills, I was fighting for my life down. As I was putting a lot of effort in. Like when you cover a 13-minute run of using pure quads, when you're not actually using the skeleton as you're supposed to do when you're skiing, it's supposed to be fluid. I was just using like pure aggression and stubbornness the whole way down. Yeah, I was wrecked. It wasn't until day 3. I took a half day on day 3 because I actually was burning out. And it's one of those things, and I suppose it comes with experience, because they were all like, you'll be all right. And I was like, look, no. I said, I've done marathons, I've done this, I've done that. I know when I'm about to go down into a dark hole, and I'm not, for the sake of 2 or 3 hours, I'm just going to go home now and let you continue on. And it was the best thing I did. And from that point, there was a turning point in it. Like, obviously my skiing was getting better every day, but that little bit of a rest, and it's just one thing to always consider. Like, it's like that. All it took was an extra 3 hours of rest, and what it did for the rest of my week was phenomenal. And it's just an important little point to, like, I know it was skiing, I know it was everything, but I had gone to such an intensity, and the plan was to keep at that intensity for the week. Whereas just taking a half day off to sit by the pool, go to the jacuzzi, relax, go horizontal, read, do nothing. The next day I was a different person. The body had recovered. I had more confidence going down. The body wasn't working as hard. It had got a bit of a break. We weren't overcompensating. And but yeah, like, it is tough. Took a few falls. And like, you're not only like, the hardest bit about a fall is trying to get back up as well. Like, you're trying to get your skis back on, and you're high. Every movement is hard. Like, it's like you're at 3,000 meters and you're struggling to breathe. And then even the walk to the shop in the evening, you're walking up the steps and you're like, so, I'm actually curious though. So the plan was, we got back yesterday and didn't do anything today, obviously, but the plan tomorrow is to ease back into it. And as you said, it's time to stop the talking and get back onto it. Obviously I had my excuses with the hair transplant and I couldn't do anything, which kind of put a stunt to a good start to the year. But after the skiing, like, the body took a good beating. The legs took a good beating. It's time now to start loosening out, getting into flexibility, getting on the bike again. And let's just see how much high altitude training has worked in terms of, because obviously muscular endurance, like, I was working the quads really, really hard, and I shouldn't have been, but it was a similar burn to what I would feel doing an FTP trial. So I'm curious to see how the bike is going to improve, or not improve, because it was 30 day off, but in terms of how what's the best way to describe it? Not to see how much I've lost, but like how little I've lost, I suppose is the best way. And see what a little bit of a week at 3,000 meters has done for the body and the blood oxygen levels, and see how efficient the body has gotten. So I'm not looking forward to starting again, but it's I'm ready to start training again though. It's been a very, very, very long month of doing nothing. So
you're itching to go.
Yeah, very much so. And even on the flight back, I was like, right, this is what we're going to be doing. So probably by the end of next week, I'm actually going to push myself and do a sprint level triathlon. And it'll be at different points in the day, but it's now is go time, and it's gonna, each week is gonna peak with something, or there's gonna be some sort of push on. And did a lot of I suppose the great thing about flights and time and a little bit of headspace is getting back into some of the motivational stuff, because even though we do podcasts and stuff, like a week of skiing, I had to be watching videos of Goggins saying, excuse my French, are you going to be a little bitch today? And it is kind of important every now and again, even for the likes of us who know, like, just get going, it'll all work out fine, the fitness will come back. Like sometimes I do need that little bit of someone telling me, listen, you're just being a little and you're like, yeah, I am. Yeah, okay, I'll get on the bike now. Let's get after it. Let's do an FTP test and see how we go. But yeah, looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting back into the training, and then each week I'll probably put up a loose plan. So if you're going to be following along on Instagram, so it's from now until the 21st of October. And that is the plan for it. There'll be a few things in between, and we had a couple of people reach out to us to try a couple of different challenges. We might chip into that a bit next week or the week after, Sean. But yeah, it's going to be a fun year, a few different events and a few different things to talk about, and it's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to it. Really, really looking forward to it.
It sounds like you're set now. You've almost hit that reset button, and you're like, okay, it's week one, and it sounds like you're doing things the right way. You're building it up. You're not looking at like, oh my God, I have to do, like, taking that entire task and trying to get it all squeezed in one go. It's like, no, I've got time. You still have a lot of time to slowly build that onto it. But we'll get onto that pretty soon, as in like the next couple of weeks, because just like you said there's a couple of events and stuff coming up. And then when they're locked in, we'll be talking on the podcast and how you're setting up from there into triathlon. But for this episode of the podcast, after we hit the intro music, we're going to take a step back. And by a step back, a full year back to a challenge I did last year that a lot of people might be doing this week. After we hit the intro music, this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. Let's go. So right off the bat, and I've been asked about this because I put up once, twice in a story and during the last couple of weeks on the Any Given Training Day Instagram page. Someone's like, are you doing this challenge this year? And I'm not. And the challenge I'm referring to is the Goggins 4x4x48. And I've got a great excuse. So roll back 3 years ago, we first started this podcast. There was 4 of us doing it. And one of those 4 has selfishly decided to have a 30th birthday party this weekend in the middle of what would have been the 4x4x48. And as a good friend, I have to go to that. Otherwise, I'd definitely be doing it.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it one of those things, it's a one and done type thing? I think so. I think, not unfortunately for the event itself, it's self-funded, it's self-motivated, it's everything else, it's isolation. It is as bad as it comes. And then once you kind of do it and conquer it, you're like, I've been there. Like, it's not like Dublin Marathon. We're just kind of doing it because we enjoy the company and the crowds and everything. That's the draw for that. But like, there's only so many times you want to open Pandora's box in terms of a 4x4x48.
Yeah, it's like, what's there this year? So like, unless you're doing it for like with different people for a different charity, or you made it harder by doing maybe a 10 kilo vest, or I wouldn't do it because it's not my career path. But like, if you guys did it in your full army attire, I know there was a couple people last year. There was one army group that did it last year. I know army groups have a technical term for that, and there's people listening going, "You idiot!" But there was a group that did it last year for you probably know more than I did, but I think they did it in the full gear and the 10K sack and everything on them. And so for that kind of thing, yes. When I did it, I knew it was more likely a one and done. So I made the most of it. So I had my little different events and different running routes and different things that made sense to me. So there's a number of different ways you can tackle this challenge. So for people who don't know what the 4x4x48 is, it's run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And you can't block them. So you can't say, I'm going to run 8 miles now and get a good night's sleep, and then run another 8 miles. It has to be 4 on the hour every 4 hours from there. So it's not really a staying awake challenge either. Like when after your time is done, you try and get to sleep and go from there. But the way I approached it was I wanted each run to mean something, so I'd look forward to it. So I ran with different people. So the first one, not to blow your own horn, but the first one I ran with yourself in the Phoenix Park, because the Phoenix Park was a place where I did a lot of training for a Dublin Marathon. And then running with you because, you know, we're running this podcast. I think everything else goes without saying on that one. So that was a great start for me. And then I was on to Manu, where I work out in Clane at home with the folks, where I ran my dad in Newcastle, where I originally grew up. And it was back at the Clane. A few runs because it was 4 a.m. because of the Goggins challenge. I wanted to do a few by myself as well, just because it's one of those, you know, you got to go into the hurt locker, no headphones on, and try and force yourself up and at it and go from there. And speaking of yourself, I think you gave me what felt like a month's supply of food at the start of it. Like those that follow us last year will see the whole table of food. Like even the next day at work, the girls at the boot camp like, geez, you've got a good mate there with all that food. But that was almost like, not to sound not appreciative of that, but and because of what I did, that was almost a hindrance, because I remember after my second run, I came back and I was supposed to just have a fulfilled bar and a yogurt and go to bed and get up at 4 in the morning for my third run. I will get the times down in a second, but I was like, it's easier to throw a plate of pasta into the microwave and just, I don't know why it was easier. It just was easier for me to do that and have another meal. But it was my third or fourth plate of pasta in the space of 24 hours. I don't eat that much carbs anyway, just the way I am. So that fourth one, that third 4 a.m. run, I was struggling. Like I was getting those proper contractions in the stomach on the way back, and the waves of sweat were coming over me. And not because of the run, because I was like, you're on run 3 and you're about to shit your pants. You better get back to the house as soon as you can. And you're not supposed to pace yourself out in those runs. But on the way back, I was like, I got to find that balance between going as fast as I can to get back to the house as soon as I could, and not do anything to myself and have a really rough start to three runs in. But
that was when you didn't listen to the dietary plan of when to eat and what to eat it. Yeah.
Sorry. To clarify, it was my mistake. It was my mistake. And I feel like I'm saying that a lot in the podcast lately.
The middle of the night was supposed to be a little bit of granola and protein, and you were eating plates of pasta at 4 in the morning like a lunatic.
Yeah. Like you got me those protein yogurts and the granola, and you know what? I haven't used them since, but they're great. And I don't know why. The packets of grapes and stuff. And I was like, these taste steady. So I was like munching on them all the time and stuff. But like the nutrition, you told me what to do. I was still overwhelmed with the amount of food there. Like you had even like chicken wraps and everything for me. You know, like I think I had one of them one of the evenings, but I learned my lesson the next night. I was like, I'm not doing that. But I paced, like you could start this at any time so it starts, for most people, starts on the Friday. For me, honestly, you're going to have to go 2 nights anyway. I wouldn't start at 8 a.m. Friday morning, because you have 4 to 5 runs before you're going through your first overnight kind of thing. Now, having said that, I was kind of chomping at the bit all day and kind of like not anxiety, but just getting that itch. Like I need to do something, that kind of nervous energy. But I'm glad I started at 8 p.m. to Friday, because the first night, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was very manageable to keep going. And by the time I got down to Wicklow, I ran at Wicklow at 12 o'clock or 4 o'clock. My dad, lunatic, ran boating with me. Even though he hadn't done much running at all before that, I was able to sleep during that because I knew he was going to wake me up. So it was my first kind of proper falling asleep without worrying about alarms, not waking up for alarms. But I did my timing started at 8 o'clock because I knew I'd finish at 4 o'clock on the Sunday afternoon. And that was just a great way just to have my my evening. Load of people there. It was around my kind of birthday as well, so I threw in the whole birthday thing as well as a charity and everything else, and a few drinks and all the rest. And like I said before in this podcast, after these I do all these events, is the big session with people afterwards. I just love that buzz. I don't think a pint tastes any nicer than when you ran a marathon or done a mad challenge like that. But yeah, no, it was really, I really enjoyed it, but I don't know if I'd do it again.
Yeah, it's something like, even watching you do it, it was just something I was like, I don't know. Like it's not something that really appeals to me. Like I've done, like, and a lot of the guys who listen are those who are in the defence force. We've done those stupid late nights where you're being woken up every 2 hours and then running up a hill and running down a hill, and you're doing that for weeks on end. So that kind of
job to you.
Well, it was not anymore. But
yeah, but like it was a unique thing to me. Like my first time doing this was my first time running at 4 o'clock in the morning was this challenge. Whereas you, when you're down in the current and everything else, like that's like, oh, man, just join the defense forces.
And anyone who has done it has done that overnight, the 72-hour exercise or the 2-week exercise where it's living in a hole and, you know, like you're putting packets of whatever it is under your armpit because you don't want to light a fire and all that kind of crap. So, yeah, I suppose, would it be easier mentally? Absolutely, because I get to get into a bed and sleep in between. It's so it's not to put it down. It's just something that never interested. I would have done it with you. To support, same as the night run and Art O'Neill. It's like, I have a little bit of experience in this, but kind of happy for you to go figure it out yourself. And it's just one of those things that, I suppose when you do it to one extreme, when you're doing it for the kind of a challenge, you're kind of like, no. Not to put it down, but it was great to watch you do it and watch you go through that little bit of sleep deprivation and a little bit of hard work, but the food element as well. Like, and the funny thing is, if people are trying to look back at what we did last year, those calories, now there was probably a little bit more, but the calorific count was exactly what you needed in all of that food. So when I was calculating, right, Seán needs to eat 4,500 calories a day, given how much he's going to run, estimating your average heart rate being in zone 2 because you aren't going to push yourself, yada, 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 and being awake for X amount of time. That was calculated. I think it was about 4,500 calories per day. That was including being awake and stuff. So you're burning calories from just being awake. You had a little bit of extra muscle. I based it off your weight as well. So, and your height. So given that, I calculated, right, he's going to need this with this much protein. Like this will have like you wouldn't eat prawns or anything like that. So it was like, right, if I get him a chicken wrap, he'll eat a chicken wrap with barbecue. So trying to find stuff that you would like. Eat was quick and easy, because as soon as you finish, you want to be eating something that's quick and easy. And then sleeping, full belly, get a sleep, let the body, you digest while you're sleeping, and you'll hopefully wake up recovered. So when you were looking at the mountain of food, you were like, how am I going to eat all this? And I was like, what do you mean? This is what you have to eat. So it is a bit terrifying, especially it's an eye-opener it was an eye-opener for you in terms of, am I actually eating enough for doing all that I'm doing? And what am I actually putting into my body that's getting me through all this? You know, so it is an interesting one. And the vital thing is, it's person to person dependent. So I put together a load of stuff for you that on paper is like, this is actually perfect for you. But as you realize, a banana and a protein shake probably would have done you at 4 a.m, because that's what you were used to. That was what your body had been accustomed to. You know, but it is. And if you are going to do a challenge like this, it is a good time to experiment as well. Like, don't go too mad. I'm eating curry at 4 a.m. You might feel the repercussions, but it is as endurance as it gets without being vital, if that makes sense. You're only 4 kilometers away from home or figuring out the next part, you know, and a 4-hour reset. So it was definitely, it was an interesting one for you. There was a lot of lessons learned, and you can't just rely on a Lucozade and whatever else for doing these kind of events.
But yeah, no, if I hadn't got nutrition now, like I felt by the second last run, the legs were starting to get at me. I was getting a bit tired and stuff. My mood was great all the way through. It was one of the things I was worried about. Like, I know we talked about that Rich Roll book a couple of weeks ago, and it's starting to annoy me now, because he's doing this 5-day challenge where he's doing an Ironman a day or something like that. I think it's an Ironman a day he's doing, and he's snapping at now he says it afterwards and stuff. In fairness, he's being very honest. But I'm getting annoyed at him because he's snapping at the people that are trying to help him out, and he's not having the best food and stuff. It's like, oh man, these people are going well out of the way to help you. And I hadn't read the book, but I knew of things like that. So I was afraid that people run with me, they'd see the worst of me, like on 2-3 hours sleep and just being zoned out and groggy and not being fun to be around. Because to me, and looking back on it now, it's such a fun challenge to look back on it. I felt so nostalgic looking back on that, even weeks afterwards, looking back at the post. I did a post in each run, and looking back on them, the people I'm running with and all the rest, I felt like, oh, it feels like it was like a lifetime ago, but it still feels pretty cool to even think about it. Like, I can't even think about it now without smiling thinking about it. But like, I was afraid I'd be snapping and stuff at people because the energy with the amount of food, and I was like, all right, I better force myself to have this food. One, because I can't have you come over on a Sunday evening and see it all on the table still and not finish it. And I had extra food on top of that as well, because I went down to folks in Wicklow. after the 12 o'clock run, come back with my mom, and come back with my dad. There's a man with a plate of, potatoes and lasagna and veg. And I think we all are wise enough not to say no to our mothers to have a plate of food in front of us. So I'm like, right, I guess I'm having lasagna. And so when that was finished, there was another lasagna. It was my 4th, 5th coffee today. It's like, you have, I had to drive another hour to get back to Claim for the next run. And I put that kind of stuff on myself because I wanted to make as enjoyable as I could, which is probably goes against what a Goggins challenge is, but to run as many different people as I could and to make an event of it, that to have those things. Like, you could just go outside, do your 6K loop, and then, a little over 6K loop, 4 miles anyway, and come back and do that 12 times and be done with it. But I knew this could be a one and done. I wanted to make the most of it. And speaking of running different people, because I have to give out to someone that could be listening right now, and that's Dara. So Dara, who the Barrow Way, he's been on the podcast a couple of times. He ran with us on the second night, 12 o'clock, came all the way up, did the run, came back, and he bombed it so much so, like, afterwards, I was looking back at the blog prepared for this podcast, and 2 things stick out. One is that you were like, oh, he dragged you on that one. I was like, fucker dragged me on nothing. I could do this. Actually, a third thing, he told me that day about the eco trail, the 80K, and I was like, I'm signing up for that, and I ended up doing it in September. So only for that run with him, I wouldn't have done that eco trail. So thank you very much, Dara, for that. But thank you very much for this very next thing as well. Do you remember the hang chad?
Hang chad, yes.
Hang chad. Yes. So a hang chad was doing, I can't remember exactly where it came from and stuff. I know something to do with the States. I should have looked up before the podcast. But anyway, it was just doing that little bit more at the end of the run. So if I had done a 4.3 mile run for the all 12 runs, I would have done 2 marathons in 2 days. So he told me that when I was in the Saturday night, and I was like halfway through it. And now I'd already known when I was going to get my 13th run in, because you'd already started to stir the pot in the first one, the finish back. You were like, those extra 4 miles. I mean, like, if you're going to do it, you do it. You do 2 marathons in 2 days. I was like, look, in the back of my mind, I wasn't saying to you, I was like, if I feel good at the 11th run, which I thankfully did, I was like, I'll squeeze another one in. And then when I meet people for the last run, I'm going to have all this energy. There's no way I'm going to fail the last run, because it's just take your time on your toes, pretty much just get through it. And I was thankfully a little bit faster than that, but I knew if I got that last run, I'd be grand. So I had to sneak in that extra run. And I remember you came to me afterwards a point, and you're like, you didn't quite do 2 marathons, did you? And I was like, that's the 3rd time you said that to me. And that's when I showed you the Strava. You're like, good job.
yeah. It's just nice now I can get to you so easily.
Yeah, I know. It's the little things, like, you did a 4.4.48, so what? You didn't do 52.2 miles.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is for a full marathon.
But and that's one thing as well, like, you to remind people that are doing it, like, it is no small feat. It's 2 marathons, just shy of 2 marathons in 2 days. Like, it is punishment on the body. But it is the best entrance into endurance, because you are getting the chance to rest. You will learn how to recover quickly. You will learn to appreciate sleep. You will learn to appreciate food, and you will really learn to appreciate support. And that's one thing you did really well. Like, it was a very much a 3-pronged approach, that you had this motivation because you were meeting with people. Yep. You had nutrition, whether you wanted it or not, it was there.
Yeah. And,
like, would your energy levels be different if you were just on your granola bar and Lucozade diet? You'd 100%. Probably be under pressure, like, and it was all the little key things that come together for you to do it. And it was a good indication for me, even when you look at some of the endurance things, what I need to be eating. And I learned a lot from your 4x48 when I went to do the cycle from Mizen to Malin. And I was like, I need a lot of food, and I need it in serious quantities and easily digestible. And and I learned a lot from watching what you did and stuff. So there's a lot to be gained from it. And those who are thinking about getting into a marathon and stuff, okay, you might have missed a boat this year, and now I'm sure a lot of people listening to this have done a marathon or two, but if you're thinking of going into the ultra side of things, it's definitely a fantastic little peak. It's a free open to the door. Or would you agree with me there? It's
100%, yeah, because it puts in your mind, like, straight away, I'm like, I've done 2 marathons 2 days now. Granted, it was broken up, but it was such a platform to go, okay, now an 80K in the eco trail seems possible. And the only way it does is because I've got something to build towards that, which was this. Like, so I just felt like what else can I do after doing this? Like, it's such a platform to keep building, and the support. I'm sure you'll agree with doing man to mizzen or mizzen to man head, that having people around you constantly, just it's a superpower in itself, just because it helps push you so much more. Had I done 4x4x48 by myself, me granola, me Lucozades, not talked or seen anyone, went out all the time and did it, maybe I would have done it. Maybe I wouldn't have done it. I don't know. But it makes the challenge to me so much better. And some people might be listening like, that should be a challenge yourself to go out and do it yourself. I'm like, Goggins runs with people when he does it. So I'm all right with that.
Look, it's nice to be inclusive. And it's what we've said since day one when we started the podcast with 4 of us trying to do a marathon. It was a shared experience, because it's great doing all these things. I say, like, go back to the skiing last week. Like, I ski down when I left the gang and I was going home on my own. It wasn't as fun going down the hill on my own. It wasn't as nice seeing, like, Katie or Dad, weaving down the hill in front of me and me trying to keep up with them and trying to look for the colour of the jackets. And, like, when you do it on your own, like, what have you done? It's right. Say different kind of analogies. Like, if a bear shits in the wood and you're eating or not, like, it's like, when you don't do these things with people, what are you doing? Like, or like, and you included people in it, and everyone has an invested interest in it, and you don't want to let them down either. Like, there's so much to it. There's and there's a little bit of magic to that. There's so much more of the
shared stories
magic to shared experience. Yeah, and that's like, I know we mentioned it, and we kind of haven't mentioned it over the last few years, the military side. I kind of just kept that side out of it. I was like, and that's why they call it comrades, like, because you go through this shared experience of terrible, and then you're kind of like, that wasn't too bad. Sure, we're all there together, and that's the rose tinted glasses come on, and that's why we do a marathon every year. So there's something there that has been there forever and through shared experiences, and that feeling of going through stuff together. And it's just that you did it perfectly, I think. And although I am a big fan of even my own training, like, I will go into the hurt locker on my own on certain days, because you have to go there. You have to have that fight with the brain. But like, a challenge or an event is supposed to be a shared experience. You're supposed to see the joy on people's faces when they cross the finish line or get the medal, or the suffering, like, and some people are having a bad day. But
like, that's why I had the 4 a.m. was the one where I wanted that. Okay, here's your taste of suffering. Here's when in theory it's at its absolute roughest, because there's no one there to drag you out of the bed at 4 o'clock. You have to get up and make sure you do it. But even still, I still had to Strava, I still had to post and stuff there. Like, so that accountability of other people there was there, even though I was technically running by myself. Like, I knew people were looking at the stories and the posts and stuff, be like, did he actually get up at 4 o'clock? Not in that kind of way. Did he actually get up? But I just seen,
I was.
You were. I just said, that prick, I have to make sure I do it for him. But I will say, while it's great afterwards, the session and talking to people and, having a few drinks with the pizzas and all the rest, wasn't that great for recovery. I did suffer the next couple of days sleep pattern. I can't remember the details of it now, but I do remember talking to people that week being like, my sleep wasn't there. Like, it was so tough to sleep at night that it was just, I kept waking up every 2-3 hours, that burst of energy, being like, I have to go do something. I was like, nah, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, pal. You need to go to bed for another 4 hours before you're back up for work. Like, that was a struggle afterwards, readjusting, even though it was only 2 days.
But it just shows you the adaptability of the body. Like, 3 days, the same as skiing, like 3 days, bit of a break. And then I was raring to go every day, like, it was, and then come 3 o'clock, I was tired because I knew the day was done. The body knew, okay, I'll give him this because this is what he's asked for the last few days. And then, what do you mean you don't want it now?
It's like, we're up, let's go. Let's
get into it. And it is amazing. And it happened to me on Mizzen to Malin. I did the half marathon on the Saturday, which was in Dingle. I hadn't ran in ages, and I did like one of the highest climbing half marathons I'd ever done. And I was just like, that was stupid. And then I got on a bike for 750 kilometers. But the first day was over the Cork and Kerry mountains. And I was like, this was a really bad idea. But come day 3 and 4, my body started to adapt. Yes, it carried aches. Yes, it carries pains. But I just got stronger as the week went on. And it is different strokes for different folks. Like, I'm quite miserable for the first couple of days. I'm actually probably not nice to be around. And then on the other end of the scale, I keep getting stronger while other people start getting more tired. And then I'm even worse to be around because I'm like, come on, this is great, singing songs, Frozen, you would want to build a snowman, you name it, the bare necessities. And everyone's like, would you just leave me alone, please? And I'm like, ooh, I love it.
I poked the bear.
Yeah. So it's and that's just how I always kind of adapt to things. I'm not the quickest starter, but I'm guaranteed to be stronger at the finish, and that's one thing your body kind of proved. And again, as we said, it's a lesson into endurance. You'll see what your body is going to do at certain points, and then you can tailor a few things to it. You can start to think about a training plan. You can start to think about nutrition. You can start to think about, where am I going to suffer, or where would the wall be for me at this point? And my calf started to niggle after run 4. So now you're looking at, right, how many kilometers was that in? And what am I doing wrong as I get to certain points? Or is it the pace that's wrong? Is it the shoes that's wrong? So there's a lot to be gained from it. It is a fantastic free, in my own opinion. You've done it, Seán. I'd
agree with you 100%.
But it's a fantastic free exposure into where things may or may not go wrong for you on certain days or certain events you want to do. And if you want to encourage a few people to get out there and do a 4 mile or just over the 6.4 or 6.5 kilometers or thereabouts, it can be a good goal for someone to just run with you at midnight. It can be a great inclusive thing, and they're encouraged because they're like, well, you're after doing 10 of these. And I'm only doing 1 with you, and I'm already wrecked, but it's still fantastic that they take part in these kind of things.
There's something about, and I don't know the exact word for it. Like, so I remember that the second night, it was a Saturday night, obviously, 4 o'clock in the morning going for a run, and I had to drive out to Kill from here because there's no lights or anything here. If a car comes around the corner on these roads, I'm a goner. No matter what kind of way I'm lit up or anything like that. So driving out towards Kill, which is probably the nearest lit up town to where I am, and going for the run, and like just seeing a guy hopping in a taxi at 4 o'clock in the morning and just being that idiot that's going for a run, like it's a weird mind kind of thing. You're like, oh man, I'm doing something that's just completely out of the ordinary here, because I'm supposed to be out on a Saturday night having a few drinks and coming back and all the rest. And look, I mean, next Saturday night we're going to be out to 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'm not saying I'm better than that person for going running when they're not. I'm just saying more so that it's just that kind of switches on, that gives you that extra little push, being like, I'm doing something here that not a lot of people are doing, and I'm getting out of my own comfort zone to do something. And that's the great thing with the challenge. Like, you need to have the miles and legs beforehand. The nutrition is great to have beforehand. The preparation, which I haven't really talked too much about in the podcast, especially video this week, is like, I had my clothes laid out. I knew what t-shirt, what shorts, jocks, socks, everything for the 12 runs. They were all laid out. When I needed the lights for this run, when I needed gloves and different hats for this run, it was nighttime, whatever. Like, I knew what I was wearing for each one of the runs. I knew what I was wearing for the session afterwards in the pub. Like, I was the most prepared I'd ever been. So like, while all that is important, I think that the biggest challenge is the mind. Is just that kind of, can I keep going? Because the body, like you said, the body's adaptable. Like, you could drag the body along, do things it doesn't want to do, providing you've got somewhat of a base. Like, if you're just sitting there in the podcast, like listening to this podcast and be like, I haven't ran at all, well, I do the challenge this weekend, probably wouldn't recommend it to you. Your legs are going to be feeling for weeks and months afterwards. That's not the smartest idea. But like, if you've done a good bit of running up until now and you're averaging like 80, 100 kilometer months, very, very doable. Because I think I was around the 100 kilometer month around that stage for the January, February when I went to dinner.
And it's one of those things that it's early in the year, like, so you don't even really, okay, you got back into training in January, and I've seen a lot of people run around and claim is where I'm living now that they're out there running, and I'm looking at the same faces and I'm feeling bad because I'm like, oh, I should be out running. And I'm like, I can't go on a podcast and not be around my town running. But I actually hate running in a town. This is the bit that gets me. I'd rather be in a dark forest with a head torch than I would dodging cars and dogs and prams. And
a lot of people are that way.
Yeah, I really don't enjoy it at all. And I admire people that can do it. It's just not for me. But yeah, it's if you have been doing it, it's definitely doable. It is definitely doable. Yeah. And don't be put off by the fact that it's 2 marathons in 2 days. It's not. It's a 6.5k run a few times a day.
Yeah, I mean, like 2 marathons 2 days. Usually, when you say that, like, and you've done 1 marathon before, going, oh god, 2 days is a nightmare. 1, it's broke up so much, you got so much food. But 2, you're running nowhere near the pace. It's the pace, the killer. It's not the distance. It's the going out as hard as you can. So most of my runs, apart from that run the Saturday, the second night I got taken, I did a 35-minute 6.5k. Most of them were anywhere between the 40 and 50-minute mark, and I didn't care for time because there wasn't much difference in 5 and 10 minutes in terms of rest and recovery before I still had 3 hours before the next one. Granted, sometimes I only had 1.5 or 2 if I was driving and stuff like that, but like every session wasn't my drive and stuff. So it's not a sleep challenge. You'll have to stay awake for all 48 hours. I wouldn't recommend that. At the same time, it's not a how fast I got these runs in. It's just go out and do it. I would thoroughly recommend it. Like I said, it's up there, one of the best challenges I've ever done. I look back on it with so much nostalgia. Really, really enjoyed that time doing it. Don't know if I'd do it again. It'd have to be for a good reason. But if someone was like, hey, Seán, I've got this challenge coming up, and someone around here was like, yeah, I'd pop down and do 1 or 2 runs, which are absolutely no bother. I'm like, put my service out there right now to do it. Unless it's during Colorado 30, where I have to go to a pub and drink a few beers on a Saturday night.
Yeah, no, it is a great one. It is a really good one. It's something that, yeah, I've been there and done that in different aspects, and it just doesn't interest me. And not so that I just wouldn't feel the same challenge you felt, because it already felt stuff like that, and it's just, but it is still a fantastic achievement. And maybe I'm just being soft, but I don't know.
But no, you've done overnight stuff. Like you do 24-hour shifts and all that kind of stuff anyway. So that's that mental thing is nothing to you. Whereas to me, it was like I had no idea how I'd react at those 4 a.m. runs, and then going at 8 a.m. and heading back to Clane and seeing people I work with and seeing what kind of mood and stuff I'd be in, because I think I'm a happy person to be around most of the time. Like, I know I have some of my early morning moments when around people, like I need a coffee first before I do anything. But like for the most part, I like to think I am. So I was afraid of being snappy at people or just not being myself and just being, just being like, not the curse in the podcast, but just being an arsehole. I didn't want to be one.
Yeah.
I'm sure I had the people anyway, but in terms, like, I didn't want to be kind of that snappy kind of arsehole people. So I was genuinely worried about that. But thankfully, I think I handled it well. And I really enjoyed the weekend. So if you are doing it this week, absolute best luck to you. Feel free to hit us up on the Instagram if you've got any questions that we've not addressed during this podcast. I'd be more than happy to help you out on that one, myself or Eric, because you've done a lot of training as well on very little sleep. So unless you've got anything else to add to the podcast, I think that's pretty much it for this week's episode.
That is it, yeah. And then keeping this out, we'll have a couple of guests on over the next couple of weeks. So, just going to be some couple of interesting things. And we'll keep you updated on Rachel's training as well. Rachel's doing really well. She's advertising chamois cream at the minute. So she actually got a... Yeah, she got a sponsorship. She got a sponsorship. I really should have looked up the name of this because we're not really helping her with sponsorship. But,
we did tag it on the stories, though. She tagged us in the stories. We did reshare. I didn't know she got a sponsorship on it. But
yeah. So because she's now Ironman famous for winning Western Australia's Busselton half Ironman, right. Companies are starting to reach out to her for sponsorship, and the first one is arse cream. So she's like, how do I advertise like that I'm using this? And she is saying, no, in fairness, she is saying it's absolutely brilliant. Like, the stuff she's using is probably the best one she's ever used. Yeah. But she's like, how do I say that?
Well, she's dealt with 2 pain in the asses in the podcast before.
So yeah, we'll keep you updated with relation. She's back to work now, so she's feeling it. She's feeling the trying to be a professional athlete and a professional worker as well. It's very tough. It is very, very tough. And because she is 100% dedicated person to everything, so it's both her work and this, so it takes its toll. But yeah, we might check in with her over the next couple of weeks, see how she's getting on with her prep for the World Championships in Finland. So yeah, do keep listening over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see what challenges we bring on ourselves, Seán.
And on that note, that is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. That's it for myself and Eric. Take care.
Bye.